we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to run through a lot of really juicy things, and I hope you guys take a lot away from this. So welcome to the power of visual media and branding. So to start things off, I want to introduce our wonderful panelists. Marni, would you like to start?
Sure.
Cool.
Can I borrow that? All right. Hi, I am Marni Wandner. I am the VP of Digital Marketing at an entertainment marketing company called the Syndicate, and we're based in New York. We work with a lot of different artists. We also work with some brands and some festivals and things like that. And my department, digital marketing, we focus on social media and digital strategy.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alexis, and I'm the self-proclaimed main bitch of Blonde Diamond. It's a title that I gave myself because in the modern day of music industry, you can't just be an artist anymore. You have to do everything yourself. So I was asked to speak on this panel because I spent a lot of money on art school, and I got my degree in graphic design and visual communications. So throughout the time of me playing in bands, I've also worked in a couple different advertising agencies and in-house at Lululemon Athletica and a few other digital design studios. So we'll talk a little bit about how my learnings in those areas have kind of helped me with my marketing for my band as well. You have your own mic.
I do have my own mic.
Special.
Hello, I'm Brandon William Fletcher. I am the owner of a creative studio called Faked Potatoes, where we do a lot of graphics, branding,
Best
and
name.
music videos. I am also the creative director and work on marketing at Nimbus School of Recording and Media, where I helped to co-develop a couple programs there. One's video production, the other one is content creation for music and media, which is a little bit of what we're talking about here. As well, I sit on the board for Music BC, and I think I was the fourth person asked to sit in this seat.
Why would you say that?
But I'm very happy to be here, and I'm really excited to talk with you guys about my inspiration, my process, and how it can or cannot be what you guys do.
Awesome. Can we get a round of applause for all these three, please? Thank you very much.
We haven't said anything yet. Don't clap.
So for those who don't know me, my name is Jeff Ojeda. I am an artist manager at Hive Management here in Vancouver. I have an extensive background in design and branding. I don't know why I'm looking at my phone. There's nothing I'm reading. So I've, about 10 years ago, I was on the road as a guitar tech, not making any money, but just doing everything I could to help this band work and break. And through that process, you know, like I said, I wasn't making money. I downloaded Photoshop and told myself, you gotta fucking learn this thing because you have to pay your phone bill. So basically, fast forward several years, I jumped in and did design and branding just on the premise that I wanted to do better for other artists, and I felt that their music didn't have the right like visual representation. So I jumped in, and it took off right away. Found myself working on branding and campaigns with artists like Florida Georgia Line, Nickelback, Keisha Shante, Flo Rida, many, many, many more, along with all their labels and their management partners and everyone that's kind of a part of the picture. So anyway, fast forward, I'm now an artist manager. I've transitioned my way through, and I've taken all my knowledge and branding with me. So that's me. All right.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna dive right in here. And I'm a bit of a pacer, so that's what I'm going to do. But to start this off, the biggest part of branding, in my opinion, is really understanding who you are and why you're doing what you're doing. So when you ask artists, typically, you know, what makes you authentic? What makes you stand out from everyone else? You know, you get answers like, oh, we put on a great show, or, you know, we're really theatrical, or lots of energy on stage, or, you know, a huge vocal range, whatever it is. Artists are always answering with what they do, not who they are. And that's the biggest point I want to make today, because that's honestly what's going to identify everything for you and help you open up what you're doing and understand all of your different sides of your businesses, live music, how you present yourself on stage, your social media, how do you create, this aesthetic and this idea. But the point I'm making is that everyone talks about what they're doing externally, and they're not actually looking introspectively. So when you think about a band, as that example, being edgy or really, badass on stage or whatever, what actually is happening on the inside is that they might be edgy, but they're actually maybe political activists. Maybe they've endured some sort of trauma and they are a voice as a survivor to help, create a narrative that touches to people in a way that they might have had an experience in the past. What is your connectivity point? And what that starts with is, who are you? What are you passionate about? And so when you find out, if you're looking at being a voice and creating a space for people surrounding your brand, what you're actually doing is creating your DNA within your cultural group. So the main point I'm trying to make here is, when you find out who you are you passionate? Are you emotional? Do you have dark times? Are you a very positive? Are you a DJ that's all about throwing parties? What is your who? Who are you? And why do you do it? To connect with people. We're in the business of selling emotional connectivity, whether you want to look at it that way or not. You're putting something out there into the world that hopefully someone will grab onto. Now, the big question, who? No, sorry, why? So now I'm going to kind of deconstruct this a little bit, and this is more to give you all an idea of what the impact of branding looks like over a long period of time and what that does to us. So I'm going to call out a couple names and just say a couple answers. The first word that comes to your head when I say these artists. Okay, ready? Snoop Dogg. All right. All right. We're off to a good start. So Pink. Right? Empowered. Goddess. Hero. She's crazy. Yeah, that. Rage Against the Machine. Right? No, but all of the differences in what you all are saying, that's the important part. Those are the subcultures that you're trying to deliver your message to. All right? So finding your cultural DNA is so important, because when you understand who you are, why you're doing, what you actually physically do to perpetuate your brand, you need to know who you're serving all of this to, and that comes down to understanding your cultures, which your brand can sit with. Anyway, I'm going to hand this off to Alexis, and she's got quite a story to tell in the creation of your creative process.
Yes. Is this the part where I do my slides or no?
So.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's switch.
So I don't think.
The irony is they asked me to do the creative planning process.
Oh.
And I didn't plan any of this.
Is this you?
Think about that.
Welcome to real life.
But basically that's kind of just it, is that, yes, these are my slides. I honestly have no idea what slides are in here, so let's say this is the beginning. So because I got back yesterday and I just gave Paige from Music BC a bunch of things that I felt were relevant that I'm going to talk about. So each one is a surprise for you and for me. But it's all part of a larger overarching story where it is a creative planning process, in the sense that when you have dedicated time into expressing, your emotions and your feelings into a song, and then you want to share that song with the world, and you're kind of trying to figure out the best way to get that out, it does take some strategy behind how, you want to represent yourself, and kind of like how Jeff was saying, who you are, like figuring out what it is that's your, DNA that makes you special. I always hated hearing that because I was like, I don't know what makes me special. I have no idea. I just like get sad and write things. And then, I don't know, I want to show my friends and hopefully they say it's cool. I don't know what makes me me. And that's, it's really easy to talk about that and be like, find out who you are and then just like do that. And you're like, I don't know what that is. And it's really just a matter of trial and error and like figuring out what that is. Because for me, when I started my project, we used to be called Youngblood, and I'll kind of get into why we're called Blind Diamond in a little bit. But when I was first writing music, it was like really sad and it was really dreamy and it was really calm and serene. And I'd written all that in a studio before I'd ever got on stage. And then once we started performing, I found out that I was actually like a lot more like energetic and kind of crazy and like did a lot of high kicks. And like that was just kind of what came out. And I couldn't really, like hide that. And so it's basically, you just kind of have to do it. And when you're working in an agency and you're talking about visual strategy and like media, normally what you do is you figure out what your core values are and your target audience. And that's kind of a thing that you do in marketing, that it still applies with music, but basically your core values, instead of being like for a company, are your own personal core values. And that's kind of what builds you up as who, are you political? Do you like to sing like happy things and like motivate people and empower them? All of those things are kind of part of your values that you want to talk about. And then your target audience, you want to consider that as well. Because, do you want to be singing to people your own age? Are you a bit more like mature, or do you like to sing to more of like a teenage audience? So these are all things to consider when you're putting your stuff together. So these are just kind of some examples of different aesthetic things that I've put together, so we can kind of just like go through this. So basically, I'm wondering how the best way to talk about this is, because they're not really in order. So let's talk about fantasy love. So basically, actually no, let's talk about Youngblood. Sorry, this is going really well.
They can't even tell.
They can't even tell. I just like always find it really funny when people ask you about your creative process, because it's like it's hard to explain it, because you just kind of have to just do it. And I feel like probably half of the things I'm saying are going in your brain and out, and you're gonna go home and forget most of it anyways, and then you just upload your music to SoundCloud, and then people are gonna like it, and then you're gonna start playing shows, and that's just gonna how it transpires from you. Basically, the biggest thing I want to talk about that was the biggest learning for me, that I feel like is the most important thing for me to talk about, is that when I first started, so my last name is Young, and my nickname was Youngblood, and when I first started making music, I didn't really think that it was going to be anything larger than just like a side project for me. And so I decided to call it Youngblood because that was my name. And as somebody who works in social strategy and marketing, there's a thing called SEO, which is search engine optimization, which I fully knew about. And that's basically, for those of you who don't know, that is like your search rating on Google, and it's like things that are tagged to your name. And if you Google Youngblood, there is a lot of stuff out there called Youngblood, and I made the mistake of titling my project something that everybody else also decided to title their project. And so I had to go through the process last year after playing in Youngblood for 2 years, where we traveled the world and, toured Europe and North America and Australia and India and like created a name for ourselves as Youngblood. We basically had to change our name last summer, and it was okay. It's gonna be fine, but I want. I would
no
just,
easy task.
Basically my biggest piece of advice that I could give for anybody who is just starting out is like, please consider your name, because it is part of your visual brand. It is part of your messaging that you're putting out there. And if people can't find you, then like there's no point.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to add too, just go on Google and type in what you're thinking. And if a lot comes up, then you're in a lot of competition. Second thing I would recommend, if you're looking at a viable project name, if you go to namechk.com, namecheck.com, CHK, spelled incorrectly, that you can literally type in a social handle and see if it's available across the board. Great tool. I use it all the time. I recommend you guys jump in on that.
Yeah, and it's really valuable because it is a part of your, recognition and, your branding and your identity. And that being said, having to reset as Blonde Diamond, it is possible. If you do want to do a name change, it is possible, and a visual branding kind of strategy as well. But it is a really important thing to consider. How you're representing yourself, not just with your music and your sound, but also with your name and like lexicon and language, and also with your visual representation as well. So I'll kind of go into these things here. So this is like a teaser video that we made. So basically, just kind of played that because this was like a teaser video that we made for this latest EP that came out called Fantasy Love. And basically, part of our aesthetic is kind of like creating or like crafting, what am I saying? Vintage kind of like sounds. And
It's like the future of vintage. Right?
Yeah, our
Retro
tagline
future.
was what the 60s thought the future would sound like.
Right, yeah, I like
so basically what I tried to do when we were creating our visual stuff is like, I know that my music sounds like kind of retro futuristic, so how can I mirror the music with a visual representation of that sound as well? Because I do feel like there is strength in when you see like an album cover or like a single cover and you almost know what it sounds like before you listen to it.
It gives you a vibe that matches the music.
Yeah. Exactly. And so that's kind of like what we're doing with this. And so with all of these single covers, basically I just kind of put these in here briefly because what we were doing with these is they've all got like a similar aesthetic where they were kind of consistent across the board. So you just want to consider that like whatever it is that you're making, you want it to like have a consistent look and feel, so that when people see that, they're like, oh, this is Blonde Diamond, this is Youngblood, like this is part of their work, and you can like visually identify it. And also when you're going through the design process, this is basically just like an example of the design iteration process. And you can see that there's like multiple versions of all these different album covers, and it's just kind of like playing with like color palettes, playing with different visual imagery, playing with all these things, and kind of going through the process of like, how do I feel like this best represents myself? And
what sticks over time when you're staring at them all?
Yeah,
Right.
basically. And like kind of like, the black one is like, is this too macabre for the kind of music that we're making? Or is like, the pink stuff too like bubblegum for the kind of dark pop that we're making? So it's like going through and like trying different things and like, try like the different things on all the ends of the spectrum. So it's like, you can figure out that middle ground that like best represents you, basically.
Yeah. A great place to start, to touch on that, I mean, because a lot of people in here aren't ornately, design forward. So a great place to start there is just honestly start a Dropbox account or folder and go on the internet, go to Pinterest, go to Google, just pull memes, pull like pictures of animals, whatever that you think speaks to you. Like Marie Kondo, if it sparks joy, throw it in Dropbox. And eventually all of that will start to make sense, and you'll start to identify, you're like, wait, that actually doesn't make sense anymore. And then once you narrow down your aesthetic, it's amazing how that changes your perspective and how you conduct all your assets, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. And so kind of like that perfectly translates into what's coming up on here, which is a mood board. And a mood board is exactly what Jeff was saying, that you can create a mood board for yourself really easily on Pinterest, which is basically just saving a bunch of things that you like. And over time, you'll start to recognize a pattern between all of the images that you've saved, because you'll start to understand like your aesthetic and the things that you're drawn to and the types of colors that you're drawn towards. And then once you've kind of created like a general overview aesthetic for the things that you're creating, you can kind of like go into more specific things. So what this example is on the projector here is basically a mood board for a video treatment, which obviously Brenton will get into later because that's like a little bit more specific on the execution. But you can kind of like start archiving things and like saving things to get like a vibe and a visual aesthetic. And you can do this for album covers, you can do this for tour posters, you can do this for music videos, for social banners, and basically just like start archiving things and saving things that you feel like drawn to. And you're gonna start to notice that you have a really strong, consistent look and feel across all of your social platforms, across all of your single artwork, album artwork, tour posters, and everybody's just gonna know it's you just by looking at it. And that's kind of something that I feel very fortunate about with Blonde Diamond, is because I've been very stringent in creating a very specific look and feel, because I am a little bit OCD about it. I have a lot of people come up to me and say, like, I knew that was you before I even listened to it. Because I recognize your brand, I recognize your logo, I recognize your color palette, your type treatment, your visual aesthetic, lots of glitter, lots of neon lights, you know, and that's just my thing that I feel really attracted to and really strong to. And it's something that now, when somebody watches something that looks like this, they're like, oh, that reminds me of Alexis, this reminds me of Blonde Diamond. And so it's like a really powerful way to remind people of your music and your
Absolutely.
messaging.
And that's exactly what we're trying to get at here. And the point that I was trying to make earlier with Snoop Dogg and Rage Against the Machine is those are iconic brands that have lasted through time because of their identity within their social groups, but more specifically their cultural groups. So similar to what Alexis is doing, is she's got such a strong sense of what she wants to do and how she wants to portray that people are starting to identify that. And, you know, it all circles back. And that's just in the power of branding. You're not selling that to people and saying, hey, listen to my music, consume my shit. They're going.
No.
You should, though. It's actually really good.
It's actually great. You really should.
Better when your clothes is a fucking bop.
I mean, it's just all kind of like a funny part of like the process where, you know, you've spent so much time like laboring, like pouring your love into this music that you're making. You need to like give it a strong visual aesthetic that matches, because it's like selling your music short if it doesn't have a strong visual representation as well, because it is a complete sensory experience that like, it's like you can almost hear the music when you're looking at a strong visual representation of something, and it's like all a part of the package. And so it is like worth investing. If you can't do the design yourself, it really is important to like make friends with somebody who does.
Absolutely.
And hang out with them and work together and like work on shit together and have fun. And like some of the best pieces that we've made of video content are literally just somebody that I found online that I loved their videos that they were making, and I sent them a message on Instagram and I was like, you need to make something for me. Now.
That's awesome.
And
collaboration.
You know, we became really great friends, and then it became a part of our Blonde Diamond aesthetic.
Should we pass it off to Brandon
Oh,
here?
most definitely.
Round of applause for Alexis, everybody. Thank you. One really valuable tool as we move into the next set here is this mood board idea and doing the groundwork before you actually go out and create all of your what you're doing socially, that is the backbone of everything. When you go and perform a show, how many times do you spend rehearsing? How many times, or what is the process in which you make sure that you know what you're doing so concretely that it's second nature? That's exactly what the point is here, because more often than not, people go on social media and go, what do I post? Am I posting too much? Is this stupid? When you understand who you are and you can see it, it all starts to kind of make sense. And you realize, okay, maybe I don't need to do that. Maybe I'm more like this. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is conceptually, from your brand perspective, do the artboard, but also create another Dropbox folder that will be your content bank for social media, and have them both open side by side to make sure your aesthetic is pairing up with what all of the different images that you've chosen. And that's something that I can't, recommend more. Be prepared. And with that being said, conceptualizing your vibe and creating assets.
I love that you said having it be second nature, because you should be, I don't know if you should be, but I tend to get entirely sick of a project before I've even made it, because I've spent so much time considering it. Which I think should be the goal. Whether you're on a set for a music video or if you're on stage for performance, you're putting a graphic together. There is an organized chaos that happens in this industry that is unavoidable. And if something is second nature to you, you're not going to flail when that chaos hits or when that thing goes bad. It's going to be, this is an easy sidestep. I'll do this dance move instead, or we'll film the scene with this jacket because that's to go with the theme. So I'm going to roll over a little bit about my inspiration, the way that I go through my workflow of working together with an artist or myself or somebody to come up with their brand. There's going to be a bit of rollover with what Alexis said, because it's good advice. But the first one to start with is the now defunct band Van Damsel, because I can't hurt anybody's feelings. Wait, are we filming this one, by the way? Okay, cool. Nothing against them at all. I love the boys.
Also, I confirmed we're allowed to swear in case that slips.
Good, because that's
Don't feel bad.
That's how I talk.
I dropped an F-bomb right away.
Yeah, I love it. These were some friends in Van Damsel. They were going through a logo rebrand, an overall rebrand, really, and we wanted to talk about logos for the start. And this really comes back to Alexis's whole point where she was saying collect items. So I like to call that kindling. No matter what I'm doing, if I'm on Instagram and I see something, I'll bookmark it or I'll take a screenshot. If I'm online, I'll save an image. If I'm on Pinterest, I'll save an image. I'll take pictures of cars or oil in the water, whatever I see that sparks something. I collect all of these things, and I've got them sorted in an inspiration folder full of 40 or 50,000 images. So when a new project comes up, it's not going out and starting from scratch to look for elements for it. It's already organically collected stuff that I might be thinking of.
That's brilliant.
That could go into it. Because if you force something last minute, it's going to feel forced. But if you have that time, and we don't always in this industry, you'll get that email at 9 p.m. saying, I need this poster by 9 a.m. And you're like, okay, cool.
That never happens.
What? What's ASAP?
Yeah. But if you have stuff that's building organically over time that naturally fits into that, it's going to work better. So going on to the idea of whole inspo, like Alexis said, I don't think you should ever edit yourself when you're collecting those pieces of inspiration for a new project. Whether it's a music video or a logo, throw everything in. You can edit it down later. That's when you see the overall pattern start to emerge. So this is the one that I ended up getting it down to. A bunch of, I guess, Alexis and I have similar aesthetics. I go a little bit more on the anime Blade Runner of this retro future. But you might be noticing something constant and common up here. And it started out with way more photos and images than this, but there were some that you looked at it and you think, well, one of these things is not like the other. And then eventually you want to talk to the band or the artist or the person that you're talking to about what you're trying to do. And the most important part about having this inspiration board, or this mood board, or whatever that you want to call it, is you're now on the same page. Because words don't mean anything. I mean, their language is very powerful, but we all grew up in slightly different homes with slightly different definitions of each word. So if you come to me and say, I want a dramatic logo, that means nothing. My dramatic is going to be very different than your dramatic, but a visual representation puts us all on the same page. Which is also when you're spending, if you're an artist and you're spending a bunch of money on something, or if you're getting a grant for a music video, you don't want to see this finished project and say, this is not at all what I thought we were making. And now the money's gone. that's a really shitty place to be in for everybody. So an inspiration board gets you all on the same page, and you can start working towards a common visual thread that way. And then, like Alexis said, it gets into iterations. So I am not an artist by hand by any means. Probably could have just hired somebody to do the brush pen work. That would have been a lot more fun. But I just watched Drive for the 80th time, and I really wanted to dive into this. So I bought a brush pen, which is it's just an art tool, a pen tool. You get cartridges for it. They're different thicknesses and thinnesses. And I started drawing V's, and then I started drawing N's, and I went through the entire, this is my short image of it, but there's probably 40 pages like this because I'd only had it for about a week. Calligraphy is hard, it turns out. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm immediately pissed off if I'm not good at something the second I start doing it. But this is the beauty of technology and the internet is you don't have to be. Everything's fake. None of this is real. So I can do these pages and pages of letters and start to isolate it down and say, oh, I like these 5 ends. Maybe out of these 5, I like these 2 ends. And you start to put some of these elements together. And again, a proper artist would have written these over top of each other in one stroke. And I want to really exacerbate this point. There's no wrong way to make something. If it gets done in time and on budget, who gives a shit how you get there? If you make it and it's real to you and it's the most efficient way to do it, do that. So I'm going to tell you rules and ideas and stuff that I do, and I break them all the time. So find out what works for you and do that. So I cheat. That's what works for me. Not like...
It's like quantizing drums, basically.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. So even when I line these up and I have this image looking like this, I'm still going to go in and tweak these letters so that they look a little bit better. That first A and N, I thought, like, this doesn't really fit into the thickness and thinness of it. So we go back and forth. And then when you finally go to say, hey, this is the logo I've got, you want to kind of maybe show them an example of how it could look in action. And they didn't use this specific image, which is probably why they broke up, if I'm being honest. Don't tell them
does anybody want a logo?
Yeah.
I've got like 3 album covers I never used too, by the way. But again, the consistency of my shot, and it gives you a way to show off that work as well. Because as an artist, and this is the part that I'm the worst at, even though we're here telling you about branding, is if you're going to be branding, you have to brand yourself. If you are an artist, obviously you have to brand yourself, and it's exhausting. It's a lot of work, but it's a word of mouth industry as much as it is an Instagram resume industry. So for me, going back, the inspiration can be, these logos were an example of inspiration, but I kind of do this OCD, I think we're all probably on the same page as creatives, potentially. I take a very OCD way of looking at this as well, where if I'm working on a new project, especially if it's a music video, I'm not just going to find images that look like that. I'm going to fucking live in this world if I'm making this video. It needs to be second nature. So I'm going to make playlists that are the song that I'm working with, and then an inspiration playlist that is all vibes of the same song. They might not even be the same genre, but as long as this playlist gets me in the vibe, and you can see everything under the fake potato spot there these are all things I'm working with right now. I'm also apparently writing an untitled Western and a Snow Bitch movie. I didn't look at this before I screenshot it.
Let me know when that's done. I want to see it.
By the way, how you sort stuff is totally up to you. This is not a normal way, I've been told.
What does the mood board look like?
Oh boy.
No, we don't need to get into
We don't. This is a PG audience that we swear to. So build that word. I'll watch only films that are the vibe of the music video that I'm going to do. I'll listen to music that's of the vibe of the video I'm going to do. I'll look at graphics that I live in this world that must be so annoying to everyone that knows me, because they're like, why are you still listening to Western music? It sounds like you're watching an old Sergio Leone movie. And I am every night. But then when you think of a solution as something, again, it's that organic process. And again, you don't probably have to go all this way, or maybe you'll go even further into it. And I'm just breaking this rule right now. I spent the last 6 years of doing this, and I think the danger of doing this too much is the same of the fear that I have of algorithms, which is it's only showing us things it thinks you're going to like, and you need to be exposed to things you don't know about. So now what I'll do is go the exact opposite direction. I hated Western films, so I spent the last 3 weeks watching them and listening to spaghetti Western music, and now I'm writing a short film outline for one that might be a feature. So you never know when that next piece of inspiration may come from. Challenge yourself. Try things that you think you don't like. Try things that you don't know in the periphery. Be around other people that have different inspirations from you, because that's the only way you're going to start to start the fire in that kindling, I think.
Yeah,
when you're
don't be
working on it.
afraid to collaborate. And even if it's just sitting down and having coffee with another artist or anyone, that you can just start talking about things. It helps get the wheels moving, and it helps you really just identify how you're going to go about it. Right?
You don't need to just pick the first thing that you like that just comes to you. I think that you make a really great point that you really like part of that exploration is like the best part of the process, that you don't have to just like put something together and then that's it, and it's yours forever, and it's just done. You know, it's like living and breathing this thing and like really exploring it, like cataloging things you like, archiving things you like over a year, over 2 years, and like seeing how that changes, how that evolves, and like progressing with that, and like really, really exploring it. And like you said, like collaborating with other people is a really, really great way. I don't know what a good analogy for this would be, like holding up a mirror to yourself, because has anybody in here tried to write their own bio?
How
Did
it
you
go?
just look at the page and you're like, I'm good? Like, it's really, really hard to write your own bio, but have you hired somebody else to write your bio? And then when you read that, you were like, oh, damn.
That's some badass bitch in Blonde Diamond.
That's really good. You know, like working with other people who can help to kind of tell you, like, you know, this is my perception of you. And that will be like, oh, okay, so this is how you perceive me. Maybe I'll lean into this a little bit more.
It's so important to get outside of your own head, because there's so many thoughts that will be swimming within you that it's really hard to be objective about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm gonna kind of twist the conversation a little bit, still within the same sort of subject matter here, but touching more on identifying value in video content and the different ways to go about capturing that content, and how to create that sense of timing with how you want to, I guess, release it. Brandon, you might be the right video guy.
Important.
I do make videos.
Yeah.
This was a late part of the recognized patterns thing to pick up off Alexis, but it's again, when you start to do things over time, you recognize maybe I do a lot of pink and blue in my music videos, and when it's not, maybe they're black and white, and if not, it's a dark green. Consistency is key. These still, in my opinion, fit for the artists that we're working with, but also kind of within my own work, and I think that's why you get hired for something. Like if I wanted to Alexis to design something for me, I kind of know what I'm getting in that process. Totally, I fucked up. What are we talking about?
That's okay.
Video.
It's just I just want to I want to give the audience a sense of, because we all have smartphones, we have Instagram stories. This is kind of what I'm getting at, is trying to identify how much effort and money you put into certain assets, but also seeing the flip side of the value in having those short little narratives that are maybe a little bit more off-brand.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a challenging one, because it's going to be different for each of you. For some of you, this visual content that is video might be a major component of your act. I'm not sure what your genres are or what your points are, and a lot of this comes from defining your goal. Who are you? What are you trying to do? For others of you, images might be enough, and for others of you, a couple lyric videos or audio on YouTube could be enough. The biggest thing is identifying who you are and who you're trying to reach. If you're playing to younger people, probably aim to be on YouTube and don't worry about a Facebook page. That's going to be a waste of time for you, because there's not going to be any young people
And like
on
that
Facebook.
being said, I think video content is like the strongest content that you can create when you're trying to get yourself out there, because, based on like data and analytics, like people just scroll past static text. And there's a term in the industry. Do you know this term? Thumb stopping? Yeah, it's my least favorite term. Thumb stopping content is basically when it's like, even if it's not a full video, maybe it's like a GIF or like a boomerang or like something that has like a visual component to it that basically catches people's attention. And then there's also something called front loading your content. So if you have a 30-second snippet of like that promo video that I showed you about our fantasy love thing, the first thing that you see in that video is release date. Because after 10 seconds, they're not going to be watching this video anymore. So it's like, what is the most important thing that you want to convey in this video? This is an album coming out, this is the date that's coming out, and this is the name of our band.
Right.
and you want to front load all of your information, and then you repeat it again at the end with these things called call to actions, if you don't know, which is like, here's our website, here's our social media, here's the link to buy the thing, and that's kind of like a little bit more granular talking about like video content. But I think, in my opinion, video is like absolutely where you should be investing your time and strategy, because it's the most effective way of like people learning about who you are.
And consumption's only growing.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Real quick question. Sorry. What does everyone here think the biggest search engine in the world is? YouTube. People will go to YouTube first because they can find a video, they can watch anything, they can change their oil, they can learn how to tune their piano, they can build a shed. People go to YouTube before anywhere else. Real quick too, if you're a musician and you don't have your lyrics in your YouTube comment caption, you're a damn idiot, because somebody could hear your song, hear a few parts of it, Google it, and now they're brought to your YouTube page.
100%. Also,
put all of your lyrics in the comments of your YouTube videos if you're uploading the videos. Make yourself easy to find.
and while you're there, put your socials in there and
Always.
to stream it on Spotify and all the things. All the things.
Because there's the read more, read less thing. It's like
Yep.
just jam it in, because all of that text that's going to be in the caption of your video is all
SEO.
There you go.
To the point when, obviously who owns YouTube? Google. So
Google.
when you type something into Google and you search it that way, what's the first thing that comes up?
A video.
Videos. So
Mhm.
you're like, okay, great. So video content, yay. But also, I think, when we talk about video content, we tend to think like, I need a lot of money to make something super high end, and it's got to be like my official music video for my single, da 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 da. That might be it has to be perfect. I have to spend tons of money and tons of time. Like, maybe you do want to make something like that. You don't have to. But I think going back to what Jeff was saying with Instagram stories and, with social content in general, social content that's more kind of casual and a little bit more less staged, does better because people react to it better. In fact, there was a really interesting article recently about how influencers are not.
The Atlantic article, right?
Yes.
I just read that 2 days ago.
It's fascinating. You guys should read it.
The uglier it is, the more people want to buy into it, which is
just-
great because ugly is cheap.
It's so
Well, because no one has a photographer walking around taking pictures of them in real life, so you have to be relatable. You have to
makeup
you have to
artist
be
and
how other
glam
exactly.
squad and
Totally.
yeah.
And you all have phones here too. They have video on them. I know it doesn't seem like you should use that for video, but a 30-second
Absolutely.
video on YouTube will show you how to hold your focus and hold your auto exposure, and your phones can do a pretty decent job, honestly.
Yeah.
You can film a lot of stuff yourself.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. We're going to transition a bit into music and brand consumption and now that we've identified, the elements and components of creating a brand and conceptualizing a brand, how is this in application as far as consumption goes? And now I just want to touch on quickly some of the things that we've been talking about. There are two real end goals that you want as an artist. You want to convert fans. So number one, fan conversion. But the more important one, and the reason why we're all talking to you today, is retention. Give them a fucking reason to stay, right? Give them more to ingest and more content to really fall in love with you, right? And anyway, the transition into consumption. Do I need to set up some slides for you here? Okay.
By the way, can you guys see me? I feel like I'm camouflaged into this chair and I'm just like a floating head and hands. Is that what it looks like? Yeah. Yeah. Hi. Can you tell I live in New York? Is that?
So just left and right here.
Okay, cool. All right. So being that, I work in the digital realm and specifically in social media, we also do a lot of other stuff in the digital realm as well. But social media content is just such a, it's just an avalanche of stuff. And we work with, a lot of different clients. We're constantly, sometimes we're sort of social media psychologists because we're addressing concerns and all kinds of issues that people have with, what should this look like? Or how should I put this up? Or how much do I need? Or, what's the strategy? So I'm just going to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about from our end, once we have, an artist and a designer, and once we have this content that they've created, what can we do with it? Because that's one of the first questions that we ask when we work with an artist is, well, we need content. Jeff and I were talking about this yesterday, those Squarespace ads that, show you how to build a super beautiful website in like 9 seconds. Yeah, what is it? Less than 2 minutes. You're like, oh my God, that's beautiful. If you don't have beautiful content, what are you putting in that frame, in that giant, beautiful, rectangle? So you really have to, spend some time on that. And then when you're working with somebody like me, that's the first thing I'm going to ask you for. Where's your content? What do you got? And we do start out with what we call our strategic brief, which asks a ton of questions about lots of stuff. I mean, also kind of the process and the strategy at hand, but it's very much how to create a style guide if there isn't a style guide. So we're asking questions about colors, fonts, image preferences. What do you dislike and like? It's my favorite thing in the world. It's the first page on it, and I love reading it, and it makes me so happy. And it really gives, and like when somebody just puts like see mood board and like shows me their Pinterest, I'm like, I love you, because I can see the process. I can see like, oh, they really like triangles. I really like triangles.
And could you imagine doing her job without having that? Right? Then you have no idea. You're just throwing stuff out there, just hope it works, right? So it's so important that you guys put that time in and really understand it.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
No, that's so true. So I'm going to just run through some, not random, but some examples of content that we've created for some of our clients, a very big range of types of clients, so that you can understand kind of like when we use existing material and create other stuff out of it. And a lot of times we are creating a video out of nothing because we want video content, and we have like a photo and maybe a song, and maybe we want to do something interesting. So this is, what is it, this button?
Yep.
Okay. So I don't know if how do I play it? Does it just play? Do I just press it? There we go. Okay. So this is, I'm sure you guys know this band. We do their social media, and we need to create content, and we don't have new content. So what do? We took some photos of the band from their last tour, and we also wanted to give the band like a new look, but that was also, something that was interesting for the fans that are a certain age and could remember things like this, like something that looks like a VHS tape. So we created a series of videos that were just very, very short snippets of things specifically for social media of songs that they knew. So they were kind of like mini lyric videos with a photo. One of the photos that we were allowed to use, because there's a lot of restrictions on that, and used an interesting font, and that kind of created that look and feel, and then just did that I think I have another one, but we've made quite a few of them. So we have another one for this song. It's the same kind of thing, but you can see how it's like the same style, and you're kind of understanding. So now when this pops up in someone's feed, they're like, oh, it's another one of these. Cool, I know what this is now, and we make it sort of a pattern. We started a theme about the band's gear, GNF and gear, and off of GNF and R, that's like one of their main kind of hashtag things. And we basically took photos that exist, made them black and white, and made them, highlighted the gear in interesting ways and talk about their gear. There's a lot of their fans are really interested in exactly what they're playing. They play a lot of different instruments, each one of them. So this is another series that we rolled out. How are we on time? Because I can skip.
Oh, you're doing great.
All right, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. This is something that we did recently, same band. We wanted a reason. This is another kind of thing of like timeliness and using visuals and using social media content to kind of capitalize on a moment that's happening. I don't know anything about sports, especially basketball, but apparently March Madness is a thing, at least in America. What?
We're a really good panel to be covering.
We know all about sports.
I don't know anything about sports.
If you want to know about sports, do not ask me about sports. But yeah, so we had the idea of doing a kind of little tournament, like a March Madness style tournament. You guys don't want to know how long it took me to understand how brackets work. I was literally like, what? But now I get it. It's exciting. And we also directed people from other platforms over to Instagram because that's the only place that this lived. So obviously a band like Guns N' Roses is going to have a bigger following on Facebook. I almost forgot what it was called. What's it called? Because it's been around longer. It's a platform that's been around longer. So we're drawing people over to their Instagram, where we did a little competition. These are all different polls that people could choose. Does anybody want to guess what won?
Paradise City?
Oh, this isn't all the songs. So think about all their songs.
These are all ones I know.
I know.
Sweet Child of
You're
Mine, yeah.
correct. And I was surprised, but I'm not. So we made a little, oops, that's not, I'm clearly right-handed. I can't do anything with my left hand. Okay. That was like right on cue. So we made a little thing, you know, where people obviously got to experience the song that won. So yeah, so those are just some examples that, you know, how to kind of get clever with content when you have to be creative with not a lot of, you know, you can't like go shoot the band for an hour and have, you know, stuff like that. So this is an example of, this is a newer artist, very new, in fact, brand new. This song was literally just released yesterday. So the artist is called Delanila. The song is called Time Slips Away. It's her first project that she's ever released, not as a composer. And so her visuals and her branding were painstakingly created because she'd never done this before. She literally came out of a world of like, you know, working in the orchestra world and creating, you know, incredibly beautiful pieces that were not necessarily pop or rock. So these are 2 different videos. This is her album artwork, kind of. And as we were rolling out, kind of teasing the track, we're also building her audience because she had no audience. So she, we started with this track, this video that we made. We just kind of animated the artwork, and there's a few lyrics and there's no music. Oops, that's not her at all.
Oh, I love LP.
I know, she's so good.
What's that?
Can you guys?
This is a panel, Brandon. Talk later.
We're just hanging out. Yeah, so this is the first thing that we put up there. So you're kind of getting an idea of like, okay, what is this a song? Like, is it coming? And we also wanted to keep an air of mystique because that's part of her brand, which is very challenging, but it is possible to do. So, so that was the first one that we did about maybe a week or so before the song came out, and this is one that we did a few days before the song came out. So it's a similar concept. Now it's got the music. And I think it has more lyrics in this one. And this also kind of is, you know, goes back to what Alexis was saying about like making sure that it's captivating from right away. That, you know, it's not like 4 frames of just like black or something before, because no one's gonna watch it. They're just gonna be like, it's not thumb stopping.
Literally nobody will watch all of your video, ever.
Ever.
It won't happen.
One point
You
I
will.
want to quickly just make here is the understanding of your video assets too. The way I usually tell people is you want to kind of think of everything that you're doing, specifically on Instagram, because that's just kind of been like, okay, are we putting this in the inline feed or are we putting it on stories? So a good way to think about this is, what feeling do you get when you are thinking about creating that asset? Is it a macro or is it a micro thing? Can it live for a few seconds or a day and then go on? Or is this a core asset? Is this something that you want to really, you know, have there for people to come back and visit? So when you kind of just want to put that up to the plate and go, okay, how long do I want this to stick around? And is this a micro or a macro thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and actually that's a good segue, because these are a bunch of stories coming up that we literally just created assets just for stories, because this artist kind of had she wanted to use her feed as hers, and but stories were kind of where we did the more promotional stuff. We do a lot of like promotional versus contextual content, contextual being like lifestyle content, basically non-promotional. So, and we usually use the ratio of like 80% of it should be non-promotional, which sounds crazy when you're like, but I need to sell music. Or
Because that's
you
the
know.
retention thing that you're talking about too, because it's like, who wants to follow a page that you're constantly like, guys, new single coming out, like buy this. It's not interesting. It's not fun. You feel like you're just being sold to. But if you're seeing somebody who's like, oh, you know, I'm doing this thing, I'm celebrating this thing, like this is something that's exciting to me in my life, you want to get to know them and you feel like you have a connection with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, because that's pandering, and pandering is cheap.
Whoa, that got
and
dark.
it's not fun.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So don't pander.
Yeah, don't do that.
Because it, like you said, it is hard to find that balance between, you know, especially once you start like growing as an artist and you have like a lot of people on your team and they're like, okay, it's on you to pay our bills. We need to sell some stuff. Why haven't you posted that this new thing is coming out? And I'm like, because it makes me feel icky. And they're like, but you have to post it. And so it's like, you know, like you were saying, I love the idea of like promotional kind of call to action things being in the story, because it's like, you're gonna see it and then it goes away and it's done its job. But then when you have like a new fan coming to your page and they want to get to know who you are, they're gonna see the posts that are relevant to your value of your lifestyle, the things that you like, the things that like turn you on and get you stoked. And they're not just gonna see like, buy this, buy this, buy this, because that it's just not good.
It just doesn't
Yeah.
work. And they're also those posts, depending on who you are probably not going to be as engaging as the posts that are more, you know, more apt to have somebody relate to.
Yeah.
And I want to say one thing really quickly too. Like, people are a lot smarter than you think. You know, like you have to give people credit. And like, I remember hearing this thing once that it was like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like your fans are stupid, and I was like, not my fans. Like, it's, you know, it's like you need to treat people with respect and intelligence. And honest to God, if you treat your audience with respect, they feel that. It's a weird thing. It's not like measurable in a sense, but like you feel that respect when you're on someone's page that you know respects you. Is that, and it's weird to say that, but you feel it.
It's the closest we get to an actual feeling, I guess, when we're talking about electronics. Like that's a connection.
Yeah, it is. Totally. And I mean, that's kind of, you know, just even when you are posting, you know, promotional stuff or whatever it is that you're posting. We were talking about this yesterday about like posting with purpose. Like what are you getting from this post? You know, I think all of us can think about that of like, well, what's the purpose of this? Is it to get to show somebody something beautiful? Is it going to make their day? Is it going to inspire them? Is it going to make them laugh? Is it something that they're going to want to like share with their partner? Like what is it that's going to kind of go, oh my gosh, that's it, you know? And I think the more of that kind of content that you can do, then when you do, you know, do a promotional post, people are going to be like, oh, cool, especially if it remains in that voice. Yeah. So it's not like,
and promo's not evil. You
know,
no, like
it's necessary.
If promo is not evil, like if you think about it on this like sense of like being musicians, you're promoting your music. Like you wrote it, you want people to buy it. Like you can have fun with it. It doesn't need to be this evil thing where it's like money is bad and transactions. Like you can like it's your baby, it's your art. And so it's like you don't have to sell it in this like super dry thing that's like download my single.
Yeah.
It's like, no, okay, here's like a story about like I wrote the bass line for this song in a plain bathroom flying back from Boulder, Colorado. It's very specific, but you know, like
anyone, by the way.
That could be anybody. Like I recorded me singing this bass line on my voice memo in an airplane bathroom, and like, you know, just like writing little snippets. It's like also the song that I'm referring to is out tomorrow. If you want to listen to it.
There's a really mean phrase that I have that I like to ask all of my students when they. Hi, I've got volume. I like to ask students and people that I'm working with kind of a mean phrase, and it's nothing personal, and I want you all to think about it because I ask myself it every time. But when you're about to post content, why should I care? What is the purpose behind it? Why should the people that are going to be absorbing your thing care? And if you say, oh, because it's my music, that's not a reason. That's why you think they should care. Why should they care? What are you offering up?
Totally.
Think about it being in your feed. Think about it showing up for you. Think about those first 6 posts. If you're talking about Instagram, think about somebody seeing your Instagram for the first time in those first 6 posts and your profile. Like, what are they going to get from it? Do they understand what you do? Do they feel good about it? Are they going to be like, this isn't, I don't understand what's going on here, pass, you know?
Do you think your brand's very investable as a fan if all you see is sell, sell, sell? Probably not. So that leads really nicely into the point of consumption, because now
the call to action used to be download my single. So there was a monetary sort of transaction in the narrative, but now people expect to just have your music for free. So that's no longer the case, right? Your brand is what people are buying into. The experience that they have and the connection that they have just by randomly flipping through when they're waking up or whatever it is to escape. You have to create that level of escape for them. And believe it or not, all of this stuff that we're talking about, this is all the fan retention stuff. This is the stuff that counts the most, and it's the stuff that you can do with very, very little money, right? Buying advertisement, doing promo photos, all that sort of stuff. Yes, it's necessary, but exactly. The stuff that you have full control over is this, and this should be what everyone really takes home and does a great job on.
And it sounds kind of daunting, you know, to think that like you're selling your brand and like you're selling yourself as like the most valuable currency, because I feel like we can probably all name somebody that comes up on your feed that's like so forced that it's like, this is my brand, this is my lifestyle. And it feels very, very forced because they're like, I need to be selling this. Like, I need to be selling my brand. I need to be selling myself. And it's kind of like a weird backwards thing where you need to be aware that this is happening. But now that you know, like, forget that. And now just post things you like. Post things that like you feel are like authentic to you and genuine to you, that excite you, that like make you stoked about something. Like, it's a weird like back of your mind thing to consider, but it's not something you should ever really try to do, because it's gonna feel inauthentic and disingenuous.
And
If you're passionate about something, other people will connect with it. It's okay to like something too much as long as it's real to you.
definitely,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it makes it more sustainable. So if you are actually interested in something that you're talking about, you can do that for a very long time. If you're
Yeah.
talking about something that you don't really know a lot about, or you're not that interested in it, it's gonna feel, you're gonna fatigue very quickly. You're gonna be like, I don't want to talk about this today.
Yeah.
And then you won't, and then your algorithm will get you, and then
Game
you have
over.
to start over. Okay, I'm just going to breeze through some of these, but this is just kind of like some examples of us making things that are cute out of just an image of a tote bag, because
I
that's
love
boring. But if it's got stars on it,
It's thumb stopping.
it's thumb stopping. This is just another one. I can't remember why we did an acapella thing of that, but we did. This is also just like a super simple, like her album art is just it's just the orange, but we made it like kind of sparkly. And this one as well. So just kind of things that like get people to look at it, you know, and go like, oh, what's this? It's literally just the album cover and, you know, and one of the songs in this first single.
There are free apps as well, like if you want to experiment.
Definitely.
Like there's free apps that you can like upload an image and it will do the juju for you.
There's one called Plotograph that we use a lot. That's amazing. Do you guys know about that one? I love it. You can basically like, it's Plotograph.
PLOT.
Is that it? Yeah, Plotograph. PLOT.
Graph.
Graph.
Perfect.
Also, if you are graphically inclined, the Canva app I've heard good things about from a lot of people, and it has some good, I'm already hearing a lot of yas and nods over here. Yeah, templates, fonts, all that good stuff.
Yeah, you can literally be like, what do you want to make? And be like, I want to make a Facebook cover. And it's like, cool, here's the dimensions for you. Just fill it in with whatever you want. It's like,
Things are getting like easier and easier to be able to create specific assets for all of the things you need to be making. And so, you know, you get to like have fun now. You don't have to spend all this time like trying to create all this stuff. You can just like download an app for free and like upload your album artwork and like boom, there's some content.
So the exciting part about this is that because the consumption of music and the way that people are just consuming brands has changed so much, and music is still available, that the power is back in the listener. And so it's not really the monetary exchange of buy my single. If the listener is invested in your brand, aka does your music sit within their culture? That's kind of what you're after, because it's not, the listener needs enough to grab onto something, And the contextual point is Spotify, or whatever streaming platform, let's call it Spotify because of today. If they're delivering the song to you and you're making a decision whether you like that song, what you're after is, do I sit well with this music? Not, am I purchasing it, right? And that's the big point, is, do I identify where I could sit with this? And over time, that core sort of understanding of who you are and what you do, that perpetuates. When you think about toothpaste, Colgate. When you think about tissues, Kleenex. In fact, I call it Kleenex. Thermos.
Chapstick.
Right? Yeah, and those things just sink into our heads and we don't even realize it. And that comes from brand power. You don't watch a Colgate commercial and go, they're not going, you have to leave right now and buy a tube of Colgate. They're showing you images of like a dad and daughter brushing their teeth for the right. They're touching on the emotional touch points and the contextual touch points that will let you become invested without really thinking about it. And I guess that was kind of the point there as far as consumption goes.
Those are values. Coming back to that.
Right.
Think about your values. A really good exercise, actually, really quickly, is try to write down 5 values that you think are like your core values. And that is like a really, really good exercise, because even 3, like 5 might be too hard, but like even 3.
We do an exercise where we have people write out 100, and yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, because you start seeing patterns, like we were talking about before. You start seeing, like, how do I say happy in another way? How do I say da-da-da? And then what you do is you put them on Post-its, like a lot of Post-its, and like 100 Post-its, and you start moving them around. And the goal is to come up with 3. So you kind of have like happy and then like positive, and then you have, so you kind of file them under one another so that then you choose the strongest word in each column, and then you have like, oh, this is, okay, obviously this resonates with me because I wrote it 20 times, Right.
Awesome. So how are you doing with slides? Are you ready at the end?
I have like a million slides, so I can skip through and just find some.
Yeah, we've got a few
we-
minutes if you wanted to, maybe like 5 minutes to just go through some of the ones that you like.
I'm going to show you guys this one because this is a really good example of humor, because I think that is one of the best ways that you can, get across to people, even, if you're selling something or if you're just trying to kind of relate to people. This is a band called Eke Schnack, and they are amazing. They are an art rock band. They also have some really incredible political undertones, so their content kind of and their songs really reflect that. But this is a video of them playing one of their songs that was just released, and I'll just show it to you. It's just a little video tutorial.
That slide.
So it's just a really easy way for you to learn that song. But that they're obviously hilarious band, and that you're gonna hear that and be like, oh, that's you're gonna remember that band. So that was one of the things they were like, we want to do this, and we just like edited together all these clips to make it look even funnier. And this is just I think this might be the last one. We had a band. Some of you guys might be in this situation or in this situation in the future, but we had a band who basically, they actually had no social presence because they're not even a real band, but they have a song in a commercial. They wrote the song to maybe be in a commercial, and it was. And not really. They're like a band of other artists.
Oh, okay.
So like they will be a band eventually, but they didn't know that. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and they're like, "Oops, we're a band."
We write really catchy songs, and now we're famous.
Gotta write more.
So this band had a song in a Google Pixel commercial, and obviously, and there was no visuals, there was nothing, there was not even photos of the band, and it has to happen right away, right? Because the song comes out, Google Pixel is like, hey guys, your song's airing tonight, whatever, on the commercial. You know, that's how it usually happens. So we made an ad. We needed to make an ad really quickly for this band. And like, we didn't have any visuals. We had nothing. So we had an idea to do it, and this is what we did. I will say that this one, you'll see it starts off with nothing. It doesn't start off with any ads. And I'll tell you why. Because
You're a rule breaker.
You can't boost, or you can't promote
That's a good point.
an image. No, you can't boost something that has more than 20% text. So if I promoted it, if I ran an ad on that with all the text on it, it would be rejected on Facebook.
It would completely make this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would just flatten the idea. Okay. Go ahead.
That's not. I'm not good at this, guys. So while you're waiting for the text to fill in, being like, what is this saying? You're listening to the song, which is super catchy.
And an engaging CTA. Now I've got a question. Yeah. What is so special? I want to click.
Yeah, you gotta click.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay, well, I think that wraps up our consumption portion really nicely. There is an image that I put in here, my one single addition to this thing. So basically, the power of visual media and branding. When you get who you are, when you get why you're doing what you do, and you understand what the things that it is that you need to do to make it to the other side, to all the people that are there waiting to consume your music, if you get that right and you project it through social media, well, then basically every aspect of your career improves. It becomes the backbone to the success that you have with your live business. You know, if your branding is strong and you know, you go and say your social media is strong and you have analytics to prove, you know, say you're doing great in Calgary, well, your dollar value will go up significantly because you can prove that you can pack people into that room. So we got a couple minutes for questions. Do we have any?
Is there any question? Or
Yeah.
are there?
All right.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. So you're the cure.
Yes.
I think it's also when we're saying know your brand, you can be separate from your brand. Your artist persona can be a totally different thing.
Give me this. Also, find the strength in that, because you know you actually bring up a really good point, which I realized early on for myself is I have a very similar disposition as you, where I write really sad songs and I'm a really happy person, and people were like, what the fuck? And I was like, there's a power in contrast, because you know we write or like I write kind of based on this dichotomy where it's like you can dance to something that's sad, or you can like feel sad about something that's happy, and like find the strength in that. It doesn't have to be so black and white as like, I am happy, I enjoy life, and these are my values. You know, it's like your values is that you, or I don't know, on the spot, I'm thinking maybe, you know, but like you have more flexibility in your expression, and like I think there's something really interesting there.
Yeah, and use that as an opportunity to create drama. I mean, if you're separating your project brand and your personal brand, and if your project brand is mostly moody and dark, well, having a random uplifting photo in there might catch people's attention, right? It's something worth testing anyway. Do we have another question? We have 3 minutes.
Plaid shirt.
Bam.
Yes.
I'm an artist manager, but I'm also a multimedia designer. And I work with artists to help build their digital footprint. How do I do that for myself? Do you guys have any tricks or anything where
To like get clients?
hire profile clients? Like working with labels or anything?
kind of like to build your online portfolio?
I'd say I think you need to expose your craft a bit better as far as social media goes, and make sure that you're tagging the clients and you know, that sort of thing. Like, do a good job of getting into your clients' faces, because that's all going to be able to funnel back to you when you tag in. You know, if you tag someone in a photo, their fan is going to go look at their tagged photos and wind up back in your court, right? So I would say create a schedule that's going to make sense for the amount of content you're creating, but also make sure that you're doing all the tags and all the things that are appropriate so that people can funnel back to you.
You actually have to treat yourself like you're a client. So like, what would you tell an artist of yours that's building their brand? Because you have to do the same thing.
That's good advice.
Yeah, great point.
Maybe one more question?
One more question?
Yes.
All right.
Hello.
So with all of the digital and media and branding becoming, as you said earlier, more easier and easy to get really good, very cheap tools to do a relatively great job. How do you still stand out when there is so little? There's a lot of commitment going into it, with little technical ability to an extent. As a result of this session here today, it might be an extra 100 people around Vancouver that all of a sudden are boosting their brand. How do you, as an artist, pop artist specifically, that's not in a niche necessarily, how do you still stand out and come above that big network of people?
That's an excellent question.
I think at some level, authenticity has to come into the equation. I think if you're doing the same thing as 100 other people, I don't need that. If you're doing the same thing as 100 other people, do it your way the best that you can, and don't worry about the periphery, because the more time you spend worrying about the 100 other people that are doing it, is the less time that you're out there making.
That's a waste.
Yeah,
of time.
my advice is mind your own business. And that's not in like a rude way, but like, mind your own business. Like, that's your business. Stop worrying about the competition, what everyone else is doing. Make it speak true to you, right?
Yeah.
Think internal, not external.
It's a good idea. Oh, sorry. I was going to say real quick. It's a good idea to look at your competition in the sense like where you can like get ideas for things, but don't obsessively look at what other people are doing, because it is like one of the easiest ways to feel discouraged that you're not doing it right or you're not doing it well, like, because you know you need to do it, like Brandon said, like authentic to you. So it's good to mine for ideas, but just like don't stick on that for too long, because it's not you, it's them, and you can't really like measure your progress based on their values.
Yeah, use them as market research. Right?
Totally. And start really, really small. Like I tend to, we talk and look at things in like concentric circles. So if you're starting with this super core audience and you are, you know, like sometimes I'll ask somebody like, who's your music for? And they're like, it's for everybody. And I'm like, it's not. Nothing's for everybody. That's ridiculous. So I always say if it's for everybody, it's for nobody, right? So if you're not focusing in on like, maybe your music is focusing on a very specific subset of people who like that kind of music, but are also, you know, into horseback riding specifically. I don't know. And, you know, I love horseback riding, but like, just kind of narrowing in on that, and then expand so that you develop this heart, you know, this like heart of your audience.
I think sort of one final thing too is, yes, there is a lot of digital media. You don't have to be on all of it.
Yeah.
Don't be overwhelmed by every service. Find the ones that make sense for your brand.
Yeah.
And you don't have to create content like every day too. You don't always have to be posting. It's like, be smart, like plan it out, schedule it, like just make things that, like you said, like post it when you want to post it. Make it real to you. You don't have to do it because you have to.
Don't let it make you suffer, right? Yeah.
Because you will burn out.
Okay, I think we're out of time. So thank you again, everybody.
Thank you.